The principal monetary policy objective is to reduce substantially the import surplus of the coming years while resuming economic growth. Realization of this goal entails a market structural change of the economy, which can be brought about by freezing the standard of living, which is per capita private consumption plus public services, and restricting investments that do not further exports. The writer of the above policy assumes that, okay, so again, we looked at this form of a question in our previous problem solving session too, right? This is basically a statement assumption question or a paragraph assumption question, whatever. So basically we are assuming, I'm just writing it for the benefit of those who are new in today's class, right? From the given facts, implied meaning, it's understood, right? But the implied meaning again has to be supported by the passage. Yeah, so having said that, let's look at it. So, topic sentence, what does it say? Principal monetary policy objective is to reduce substantially the import surplus of the coming years while resuming economic growth. Okay. Realization of this goal entails a market structural change. So, realizing which goal? The goal of reducing the import surplus. This is something that will happen simultaneously. The economic growth. Okay. So how can this be brought about? How can we achieve this market structural change of the economy? Freezing the standard of living. And how is that going to happen? So basically you kind of freeze on private consumption plus public services. Okay. So basically you're going to kind of hit on ensuring the consumers don't consume much, whether it's private or public. And another way of doing it is restricting investments that do not further exports. Okay. Do not further exports means, in this context, further gives the meaning of making it move forward, some sort of progress. That's the meaning that further brings in here in this context. So what is the writer assuming here? That's the, most of you have come back and said C. Okay, so let's look at option by option, right? I'm going to go from the back. People will, option E, that's what Rani says is the answer, but let's see if that is the answer. People have to be persuaded to give up consumption for the national good. Well, I don't know about the national good because nothing is mentioned about the national good, a direct reference made to this, right? And it doesn't say, the author is not implying that any sort of persuasion has to happen. So I don't know if, the author is referring to any persuasion that has to be made. He just says, these are some of the factors in which I think will help the situation. So I won't assume E. Okay. D. Only a structural change in the economy can substantially increase imports. This word only is making me pause and stop, right? Because there are other factors that are involved as well. So I will safely, eliminate option D as well, right? The import surplus can be reduced if investment is restricted. Now, restricting investments is one of the methods by which you can freeze the standard, or rather you can help with structural change of the economy, right? I don't know if the import surplus will be reduced. It may not have a direct relation. Yes, it has an indirect relation. So slightly, I am leaning towards it. Yeah, that's all you need to do. Just change the resolution and you will be a happier person. Okay. The import, yeah, like I said, option C, we're in option C, right? It looks possible. Yeah, Anubha. Seems like yes, maybe. But let's look at B. Only if people consume less can the economy grow. Now, the passage is kind of giving me or leaning towards this very, very obviously, because if I look at the crux of the passage, right? It says, if I need to freeze the standard of living, which is one of the reasons how I can bring in a structural change of the economy, the most logical thing for me to do is, forget the passage also, right? The logical thing to do is, consumption has to be in check if you want economic growth, right? Economic growth is nothing but, we just saw in one of our earlier questions, right? What was the earlier question? GDP. I don't know. I think it was a jumble sentence. Right? GDP is what is used to evaluate. Again, but I also have only in B. Only if people consume less can the economy grow. Because I also have restricting investments. A. Economic growth will result in a structural change of the economy. Now, again, we have to lean on the passage. It looks very logical, right? Option A looks very logical. So, if that is the case, let's go back. The topic sentence says, the principal monetary policy objective is to reduce substantially the import surplus of the coming years while resuming economic growth. And then we have, when you realize this is the goal, entails means it will result as a consequence, right? This is what the outcome will be, the market structural change of the economy. So, economic growth will result in a structural change of the economy. What will result in a structural change of the economy? Freezing the standard of living and restricting investments as per the passage, right? So, again, it is an indirect thing. I would more incline towards A or C. So, I have safely eliminated E, I have safely eliminated D, and I can also safely eliminate B because it's talking about only one particular factor, right? So, we have to choose between A or C. Which is it going to be? I would kind of lean more towards A. I'll tell you why. Because any growth will definitely result in a change in the economy, right? But what about C? The import surplus can be reduced if investment is restricted. This is one of the ways in which it can happen, but I am going to just fall back on the passage. Like I said again, restricting investments is definitely going to bring a structural change, indirect. That is also true. I am going to look at A and C. Give me a second. I'm falling back on the passage because whatever assumptions we draw has to be based on the passage. So, going back again, I'm looking at A again. Economic growth will result in a structural change of economy. Yes, the import surplus can be reduced if investment is restricted. So, this is definitely given as one of the options. So, keeping in mind the objective, right, which is to reduce substantial import surplus in the coming years, and the goal being that the goal is to reduce the import surplus the coming years, and the two reasons given there, one is freezing the standard of living, which is consumption of private and public services, and the other is restricting investments. So yes, I am going to go with C. One is I have looked at the main objective, right? What is the objective? Reduce import surplus. That is the topic sentence, right? So realizing this goal is going to bring a structural change of the economy. So that is going to happen parallelly. So what are the two reasons given for that? One is freezing the standard of living. Two is restricting investments. So the import surplus can be reduced if investment is restricted, right? It's one of the options. So that's probably why I'm looking at C being the closest one. See, E again, the reason why I eliminated that first is nowhere in the context the writer is pressurizing where saying that, consumers or people will have to be persuaded. One, that's my first context. Second is, it's talking about for the national good. Yes, indirectly economic growth happens, it is for the national good. But like I said, falling back on the context, I feel it's C. Now, various sources can come back and say, it is A, it is E, and give reasons for that. My reason for C being the answer is from the context, right? Which I've already explained. So, some of the sources might even show B as the answer, right? Some of you said E is the answer. Some of you said A is the answer. Some sources might even say B is the answer. Like I said, it depends on you're dissecting and understanding the given context. So, your assumption will be safe if the context can support your option, right? That's why I always, no matter what anybody says, I need to look for what is supported from the context. So, that's why I'm going with C. Various sources can have various answers. I don't know. I'm just logically basing it on my understanding of the context. Yeah.